I am a 28 years old female. And I do babysitting on the weekends to make extra cash. There is one family I definitely should have phased out by now, but the kids are cute, and if I don't have another job, it's easy money. My issue is, the mom is never home on time. She used to not give me return times, but finally I started asking as it made it impossible to get anything done on the weekends. I'd go babysit so she could go to brunch, but she'd be gone from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. My whole day was gone. After that, she'd start giving me times but never stick to them. She wouldn't even call to tell me, she'd just stay out. On Saturday, I got to her house at 6 and she was supposed to be home by 9. I told her she needed to be on time because I had plans to go out with friends. I was even getting ready at their house after I put the kids to bed. She promised. Of course, 9 o'clock rolls around and she's not home. I call her, no response. Text, no response. Another hour. Nothing. Still calling and texting. Finally, it is midnight. By this point, my plans are long ruined, but I'm pissed and exhausted. I call her and leave a voicemail saying if she's not home in the next hour, I'm considering the kids abandoned and calling the cops. I also text her this. I try calling her 30 minutes later and it goes to voicemail on the second ring. I text her again and she leaves me on read. If she had reached out saying, hey, I'm staying out until X time, I would have stayed. I don't know any of her family nor the father of the kids, so I can't call them. I gave her a grace period of 15 minutes and tried calling again, finally called the cops, non-emergency line. They showed up and I showed our agreement in text from earlier in the week confirming that she'd be home by 9. They tried contacting her, didn't answer. I was dismissed and they took the children to the police station. I go home and go to bed. I am awoken at 3 a.m. by a frantic call. It's her. Where are the kids? Why am I not here? I tell her I followed through on my threat, check the police station. She cursed me out, I hung up and went to bed. The next day, she sends me an essay saying the kid's father was called and there's a DCF investigation launched against her. She called me every name under the sun, but I didn't think I was wrong until I spoke to a friend with kids. She said I should have just waited it out and refused to ever sit for her again. She asked if her potentially losing her kids was worth me being petty. My ex Rose and I have a son, Jason. He is 15 years old. We broke up when Jason was 5. Rose has Jason on weekends. Rose married her now husband when Jason was 10. Her husband has 2 children, they are 17 and 16 and live full-time with them. Jason has a few chores when he's with them and easily takes care of them, while his step-siblings don't do theirs and Rose take care of them. This has been the only point of contention between our son and her. He has talked with her and even went to therapy. It was when Jason was 12 when we switched days. We stayed like that for a year and a half, but since things never really got better, we went back to our initial agreement. The situation is still the same, and a year ago Jason came to me complaining about it. I had run out of things to say to him when it comes to this subject, so I threw almost the same pep talk my old man said to me when I was about the same age as him. I told him that I understand that it sucks. While they can't do anything, you can do everything. You can cook, clean, do well in school, drive, handle your own money, and you even know how to handle the bills, and I'm not counting the things you've learned from your grandparents and your uncle. I can send you to live alone right now like my old man did with me, an inside joke. And I wouldn't worry because even if you don't know how to do them, you take the time to learn. You are already ahead of many kids your age, even ahead of some adults. Do your part, and as long as she doesn't make you do their chores, let your mother take care of it. Just focus on spending time with her the way you've been doing so far. The world is going to hit your step-siblings hard one day. Jason took it well and things have been going well until yesterday. He went out with his mother and when they returned, they found their house a complete mess. I don't know what they did, but it was bad enough that Rose snapped and finally forced them to clean the house. The kids tried to get Jason to help them because they were struggling, but he refused, claiming it wasn't his mess. They kept nagging him and Jason told them that I was right, they are really useless. His mother asked him if I really said that. He said I didn't, but it can be summed like that. He called me at night telling me that he probably got me in trouble and explained the situation. Rose with her husband came today about what I said. I told them that I never called them useless and explained what I said. But useless never leave their minds and told me I'm an asshole and to stay out of their business. Rose and her husband comments were more about her kids, who I don't care, but when it comes to my son, of course I will. Jason wasn't standing there looking smug and calling them useless, he was in his room minding his business. The constant nagging and his mother's inability to stop them make him snap, that's when he called them useless. He knows he should ignore them or be more tactful, but I get it, his patience has limits just like everyone else. He apologized to his step-siblings before he came back to my house yesterday. He also apologized to me for kinda throwing me under the bus, but I told him it was unnecessary, everything cool between us. Why did he keep going to his mother? He wanted. Last year he was on the fence about going back, but after our talk, he finally accepted that his mother wasn't going to change and he decided to work around that because he still wanted a relationship with her. Their relationship actually got better, but after what happened, their relationship is going to change. We have to wait if it is for better or for worse. Him and I talked and he's still thinking about what to do, but he says that he'll probably do what he had planned last year. He will spend time with her but will not go to her house anymore. He's taking a few days to let things settle down and then he'll let his mother know. She is not going to like it, but alas, she's not in a position to demand or ask. A couple years ago, a close friend, Ashley, started a long-distance relationship with a guy, Chris. He has been really good to her, and after meeting in person a few times, they decided to move in together. I was super happy for her as she had a few bad relationships over the years and it was nice to see her in a healthy one. That joy faded the last couple months before she moved a few states over to be with him. The issue isn't her moving, but that she repeatedly joked about having a baby from Chris. At first, I accepted it as jokes, but over time I realized Ashley was serious. For context, Ashley has 2 children from a previous relationship, ages 10 and 12. Chris absolutely doesn't want kids. He told her this at the start, and anytime she hinted possibly wanting more, he shot it down, saying it was a deal breaker. Now, Chris is more than willing to accept her children as her own, because he loves her, and after meeting her kids, them as well. He's accepted that they are a package deal with her, and since they are at an age where they are semi-independent, it's not an issue for him. To me, Chris is a real bro, for taking on her kids without issue. Hearing Ashley say she wants a baby out of him, one way or another, bothered me to no end. It's hard enough to find a partner that treats you well and accepts children that aren't their own. To find one that does and then talk about plotting to force a baby seems gross and manipulative. Before her move, I had sat down with Ashley, trying to talk sense into her. At first she resisted, but finally it seemed she understood how shitty it would be. After I felt like she had understood, I put the issue behind me and helped support her through the hassle of moving. A few days after she left, I got a call from a mutual friend who delves into the Wiccan / metaphysical realm. She was distraught and confessed to me that shortly before Ashley's move, Ashley had come to her asking for a fertility spell. This friend didn't feel comfortable about it and refused. When pushed, she said she cast a spell for a healthy and honest relationship, but told Ashley it was for fertility. As you can imagine, I was livid. I messaged Ashley, confronting her about what I learned, and she laughed it off as she was desperate, but magic is fake anyway. So what's the harm? She then let it slip that since Chris was planning on getting a vasectomy in a few months, she had poked holes in their condoms as a last-ditch effort. At that point, I couldn't stay silent. I gathered up screenshots of all the conversations over the last few months and sent them to Chris. He understandably freaked out and kicked her out. Now, Ashley hates me because she was kicked out after a huge move and didn't have a job or money to make it back. She said I'm a terrible person for putting her and her kids out on the street. My sister-in-law and I have an agreement. She watches my kids 3 days a week, and I watch hers 3 days a week. This agreement has stood since March 2020 without issues. Any changes have been discussed weeks in advance. A couple weeks ago, we had an argument. The next day, I brought my kids to her house, dropped them off, and left. I didn't speak to my sister-in-law, because when one of us is in a rush, like I was, it's standard for us to just let the kids out, stay in the car, and drive off when you see the door open. I drove to work, about 40 minutes away. When I got there, I had about 20 missed calls, and even more texts, all from my sister-in-law. All saying she didn't want to watch the kids given our argument. Her first text arrived a little before I got to her place. But I didn't see it until I got to work because my phone is always on silent when I drive. I rang her, said I'll arrange to work from home, then come get the kids. She said I have 45 minutes to get back to her place or she would call the police. I told my supervisor the situation, and she said I could leave after I did a few things. This delayed me 20 minutes. When I got back to my sister-in-law's, just over an hour later, she said she'd already called the police when the 45 minutes ran out. I then had to stick around long enough to tell the officer that I didn't abandon my children, there was just a communication issue. Sister-in-law and I had another shouting match later over this. I arranged other childcare for my kids and I've been mostly ignoring her since. However, she reached out and apologized, and has asked if I'd be willing to go back to the old childcare arrangement. I work with kids. If I got child abandonment on my record, I would never work in my field again, which she knew. And her calling the police was a massive overreaction, so if she needs a babysitter she can go whistle for all I care. She said that if I checked my phone, talked to her that morning, or came back when I was supposed to, she would not have needed to call the police, and I did this to myself. As she gave me a warning with that first text and I could have checked my phone or spoken to her directly when I got to her place. All of which she says she would have done if she were in my position, given that we'd argued the night before. I've told her that if she thinks I'm babysitting for her, she's delusional, and she's on her own. Because of my refusal, it's looking like she may have to quit her job because my brother and her would pay more for a babysitter than they would earn from her working. My mother and brother have both called me an arsehole because there were no consequences to her calling the police, and that while she overreacted, she's apologized, so if I really forgive her, I'll let us move on. This income loss would also mean that she, my brother, and my niece and nephew might need to move somewhere cheaper. That my brother might have to take on extra hours at work. And in an extreme scenario they may even be completely unable to live independently, meaning they'd have to move in with her parents, who live several hours away.